Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Market Check, brought to you, as always, by BB. There is no second best daily YouTube live stream to talk about markets. Welcome, guys. I'm Snorlax. You guys also know me as Tommy. I'm joined by Jackus, Tucker, and Wabi. Wabi with us on today. Welcome, guys. We're going to have a great show for you today. Obviously, we're seeing a little bit more red from equity markets today, even despite the VIX being red and NVIDIA being green. We're going to discuss some of these, what the implications of that is for the market, of course, and of course, what the implications are for our coins. I mean, I know that's why many of you are here and would like to know as well. But before we can do that, guys, before we can get into the meat of the show, the meat of the content, I'm going to ask you to smash, destroy, annihilate, whatever verb you need to hit that like button today. We are always very appreciative when you do so. And of course, you help us defeat the evil overlords at YouTube, the evil overlords of big tech, and get our content and get our channel as much exposure as possible. But yeah, we're going to have a great show for you today. Like I said, equity markets are kind of still showing some weakness, right? I mean, we look at something like the S&P, we look at something like QQQ. We haven't quite made any new lows since Monday or Tuesday. That's maybe a question that we'll answer on Friday or potentially next week, but could be signs of a bottom. And some of the reasons are, well, when I say bottom, I mean probably more so locally until we get kind of a broader picture of what this high time frame trend looks like. But just within the context of this week, we are seeing at the very least equity markets not trading lower just yet. And I think the biggest things, as we have pointed out, that could signal, at least locally speaking, a potential reversal. You are seeing finally some weakness on the VIX for the first time since really the middle of February. It's kind of wild. The VIX has been kind of just in this persistent uptrend really for over a month. NVIDIA has been in a pretty persistent downtrend since basically the beginning of the year. So are these things that are, even just locally speaking, finally providing some relief? Obviously, like we've kind of discussed as well this week, crypto markets more or less front ran. At least they were kind of beta in crypto was very early to this downtrend, as it tends to be. We often see things like altcoins and ETH show material weakness before equity markets. That is not anything new, but could crypto markets also be the first to give us a bounce? I guess we will see here, hopefully over the coming days, over the coming weeks. We're going to discuss all of these things on today's show, as well as much more. But yeah, I'd love to open the floor, see what we're all seeing in the markets. I know it's been a bit of we've had a lot of downtrend really for the last few weeks, but this week I think has been a bit more choppy. One of the people who I go to for astrology said that was written in the stars. This is like the worst trading week of the entire year, supposedly. So maybe we get more clarity next week. Of course, I would be remiss if I did not mention that we have the blood moon total lunar eclipse later tonight. That should be interesting to watch, even if you're not just purveyor of markets, just an enjoyer of the sky. But how are we doing, guys? What are we seeing in the markets today? What are our thoughts on the current price action?
Yo, what's up, guys? Tommy, I believe the S&P actually made new lows, like right now. New lows.
Just now,
Jackus.
Yeah, same thing with that's crunch time. That's what you're hearing. Same thing with the Qs. Qs also made new year-to-date lows.
It wasn't me. I had my mic muted.
Somebody was crunching.
But hello, everyone.
Yeah, but equities are making new lows right now as we speak.
Well, Wally, did you see my line, bro? Do you understand?
Tucker, what the lines that you need to draw are the EMAs, brother. Never fade the weekly EMAs. You already know what to do, man. I can pull up my Bybit chart. I got my my MA10, my MA30, my MA60. They will prevail against your voodoo lines, sir. But yeah, what am I seeing in the markets? I mean, Tommy, you said it. We have a blood moon coming up. I'm excited, and I'm expecting a lot of volatility, man. Volatility. But this equity price action, more specifically, is something akin to 2022, honestly. Very little relief bounces, lower time frame, just straight down, hardly any relief. And when we talk about, oh, crypto looks fine, crypto looks really strong here, doesn't it? And I mean, we've all seen how that plays out, right? And when I look at something like Ethereum and I look at something like Bitcoin can very well be bottomed out here, right? And at the very most, all we'll get is like a 75K retest, which is just another 1,000 point drawdown from the low that we hit 2 days ago. But ETH could very well make significant lows if BTC so much as just does a double bottom retest. But the truth is, most people feel disheartened and beaten down in these market conditions because BTC only being down 30% from its recent all-time high means that altcoins are down 90%. BTC is down 20%. That means alts are down 80%. BTC is down 10%. That means alts are down 60 to 70%. So it's more so like the alt BTC correlation, disparity. So I understand why sentiment is crazy as it is right now. But I do think sometime in Q2 there will be some relief bounce, because the fact of the matter is, when you have equities draw down 10+%, right, and the NASDAQ is down 15+%, in just a matter of 2 weeks, there has to be some sort of relief bounce. Because even in 2022, after equities would draw down to a significant degree like that, we would see these huge mechanical bounces over a multi-week time frame. We saw that happening in the summer of 22. We saw it happen in the spring of 22. So whatever trend that we're in, whether it's a multi-month bear market that lasts 6+ months, or whether we're coming in to the last bit of bearish momentum, perhaps this was just a small bear market. I still think, regardless, you'll see a bounce, probably going into April, to be honest. March does tend to be a bit volatile to the downside, a bit shaky really overall for markets. But we do have some tailwinds, right? Inflation's coming down significantly. We have a cool PPI print. I think a lot of the bear meat is done if you're trying to short, right? And you usually see the end of a bear trend whenever you start seeing some nasty volatility, right? We saw that shortly before FTX. We had a massive short squeeze, and then right after that short squeeze, we just ripped the downside. Same thing happened in 2018. We had a little short squeeze, and then that final rip to the downside. So it's better to just pull the Band-Aid off, honestly. Pull the Band-Aid off. But as far as FOMC, right, like, I'm sort of feeling that they're going to end QT anytime from here until August, right? We've been in this regime of quantitative tightening for almost 3 years. And usually when you're in a multi-year regime, there tends to be a fallback to neutral. And I think at least a fallback to neutral would be incredibly bullish for markets, right? And there's a lot of people right now still enjoying their yield in the treasury market. So at some point you'll see a flood back to capital, but it's just not really going to be on chain or broader altcoin markets, right? You just don't have that kind of passive bid that you had last cycle with 3AC and Alameda. But for BTC, hey, sure. And if a SOL ETF starts to get filed and you start to have that tailwind, sure, why not, right? If ETH goes to like 1,300, 1,500, 1,400, or even 1,100,
Bobby, what are you laughing about, brother? What are you laughing about, brother?
That is a downtrend if I've ever seen one. Mr.
I want to
Top?
make a comparison with ETH, and I want to know y'all's thoughts. I mean, the ETH downtrend is increasingly reminding me of Bitcoin's move off the 2022 top. They look very, very similar.
It lost the 500-day range. If it was flipped the other way around, where we break a 500-day range to the upside, it would be, oh man, this is incredibly bullish. I just think it's like, I think it's just honest work to recognize ETH for what it is. It's a asset that's in a downtrend, it's been in a multi-year downtrend against Bitcoin for almost 8 years. And it's been in a USD downtrend for months with little to no relief. Like, there's just no persistent bid on this thing.
Wait, hang on. So
Can you zoom in? Just the after like the December or the November December Bitcoin top versus, and then compare it to on ETH, just this most recent high as well. We're gonna have to zoom in a bit though.
this on daily too, maybe. Let's see. That.
Yeah, they look increasingly similar. But I think ETH is probably like if they're going to play out similarly, right? And there is no guarantee they play out quite the same, but if they are going to, I mean, I think ETH is at that 33, 35K equivalent right before Bitcoin had that range. So I do think that, you know, this is probably the part where you do see some late bears start to come in and get their face ripped off on squeezes, but
Wait, do you think we're here?
No, I think we are.
January 2022 is what Tommy means.
You think we're gonna do this?
Kinda.
I personally think that like it's really tough for people to read. To me, I was saying that we had that liquidation bounce just like on Bitcoin, and I think we get it further follow through. And I think Bobby is well recognizing the weakness and the trend, which is clear. And I do agree. And we have certainly broken below that range that we've been in since, you know, in 2024. On the other hand, I think we have to acknowledge the context of the current thing, which is different to what Bitcoin was in back then. And so I personally do not view currently, at least, that follow through that BTC had later on in that 2022. I think the conditions in equities are also different, mainly. And equities is really what is driving this market above anything else. And so I also have to acknowledge the macro range that Ether is still in. So yes, while we have lost the internal range, right, which I kind of was anticipating, we will see the capitulation below. We are just at the range low of the macro one from 2021. So yes, we lost the 2024 one, but still inside of the 2021. That said, I agree with Wabi that the ETH-BTC is clearly in a downtrend with no signs of stopping right now. And it may either, you know, exactly what I was discussing about an hour ago, that it either will keep going that way still for a while, or it at least needs to start forming a bottoming range over there. But when it comes to the USD price, I think it really cannot be going sub 1500, because at that point, that would be truly problematic, and you will be looking at triple digits then for ETH. So right now, I think after all this selling, we are finally at a good spot to start turning around. It might still take a while before ETH-BTC, if it starts outperforming. But on the USD pair, I still, again, you know, view it as a macro range from 2021.
Yeah, I think for me, obviously I have some dubious speculations about the way the rest of this year could play out. I do think it's a good spot to begin punting some strong assets, though at the same time, whether it turns into a high time frame shoulder, whether it turns into a reaccumulation and a long-term bottom, it doesn't really matter. For me, I do think that we're trading at levels, and I made this mistake in August, right? Because even though I did think that we would trade lower prices, we did it like 4 or 5 months after the fact, but there were good levels to buy altcoins for nothing else bounces. And you can see what that turns into, right? It doesn't always just manifest into a lower high. Sometimes you go back into price discovery. So from a trader standpoint, I think it makes sense to begin prospecting, the ways of a bull rather than a bear. And how often, guys, do we see for something like beta 4-month downtrends with very little squeezes in between for crypto? It's not very, very often that we see price action like that without a bounce to meet it.
I totally get your point. Basically, what you are saying, right, is just like right now the risk is to the upside, and I don't care if it's the bottom or not, but right now it makes sense for me to be positioned for the upside.
Yes, I'm not gonna size like a dickhead, obviously, but I think there are some strong assets still in this market. I mean, that some are even green today, right? Like, I mean, I think there's still opportunity to play bounces in this market, even if you think if we are headed into a structural bear market.
Yeah, totally.
A structural bear market would take ETH to 3 digits very fast, egregiously fast even. I mean, if the S&P goes down to 5,100, I think I mentioned this last Friday when ETH was trading at 2,100. No, actually, no, 2,300. Excuse me. If the S&P goes to 5,100, ETH probably has a good chance to hitting like 1,200, 1,300, right around there. Lower than that, probably 3 digits. It's nothing bad, to be honest. It's nothing bad. That's not really bad.
That's not bad.
What do you mean that's not bad?
That's awesome, guys.
Yeah, I don't think ETH BTC stops going down until quantitative tightening, and I think Ben Cowan said this for a few months now, but I think Cowan is right on that end. After Trump coin, like a lot of the bid in this market for alts just got extracted from the market. All that money that got poured in from people working and saving money and coming into this market and going on Sol and flipping coins, a lot of that money is gone. A lot of the hyperliquid airdrop money is gone. Like the fact of the matter is we don't have an Alameda or a 3AC or a Genesis to pump these markets. There is no lender of last resort. There's no QE, there's no ZERP. And so, that's why we've had this wonky price action.
I disagree, Bobby. I disagree with the fact that we need QE for markets to go up. And I think here is the proof where you do not really need QE for, to have a good alt season. Because in 2017,
I'm not saying QE. I don't mean QE brackets. I'm talking we don't have like VCs with a ton of money that came from an easy monetary or at least a neutral environment. Like the valuations that we had last market were because of an insanely easy monetary regime. And even if we flip neutral, it's just really, really difficult to have multiple altcoins have insane valuations. That's why you didn't really see new assets in the top 30 that came from like newly fresh launches. The new tokens that you see in the top 30 and top 50, they're tokens that reached price discovery in private markets, right? They were VC tokens that went from like 100 mil FDV before the token even came out, and they came out at like 8 bill, 10 bill FDV, right? It's not like last cycle. And it's really difficult to compare this cycle to 2017 style price action because one, the market, the asset class was just significantly smaller. And I think it's like, I sometimes think it's really disrespectful if we like discredit the regime that we're at right now on the market cycle and its behavior of the cycle right now, and we compare it to like something from 8 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Where if you remember, Jackus, what did we have? We had BitConnect, we had all the cloud mining scams. Neo went crazy because Neo was trading at 5 mil market cap. Of course, it's going to shoot up to like 200 mil into the top
Yeah.
50, right? When the asset class was like what, 30 bill, 40 bill total market cap. It's
Yeah.
a completely different regime, completely different.
I agree. We always, like, this is something I keep on talking about too, that we always have to put things in the current context. Well, obviously, like, I'm not saying we never, right? Never ignore the past examples, but always put it in the current context, which is sometimes hard to put together, but it's the goal we should strive for sure.
Yeah, I mean, easy example of not needing QE.
Yeah, we don't need I mean, it would surely help, but it's not that we need it, right? Like, if QE comes, obviously that's super bullish, but I would just say that we are not dependent on it, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the main thing is the market maker bid for alts. That's like the biggest takeaway here. Not exactly QE, it's the market makers. There's no 3AC. There's no like massive lender to prop up this market. Like if we take a look quarter by quarter, the assets that outperform are always like different, right? 2023, it was a hot ball of money going between Caspa, Injective, Rollbit. Q4, we had Say,
Render.
Tira, and all that stuff. Render, FET, Tau. And then in 2024, it was meme coins, right? And when the meme coins started pumping and Pump Fund got released onto the market, it was essentially PvP from February all the way to October until GOAT came out. And then AI took over again, and every sector pumped insanely hard, right? You had Pepe go to 13 bill, Trump coin doing like 100x in a day. Robinhood was listing memes, Coinbase was listing memes. When you have all that paired with like Robinhood going into price discovery, markets need time to cool off, and patience is warranted. And again, like there's a clear difference between what's been going on now and the flows that are happening right now compared to something like a 2017, right? In 2017, 2018, 2019, the average person was buying BTC. That was a huge bid on BTC, just average people, just like the flows that happen with alts. But right now, institutional flows are driving a lot of the volume with BTC, right? And that money does not really have a huge chance in doing what previous market participants did, where they would sell their BTC and buy some altcoin that's at 100 mil market cap, right? And it's still going to take some time for those flows to go into ETH, because a massive flaw with ETH is that you have the founder selling every few months. That is just not a good look, right? It's like, would you buy Apple stock in the 90s if you saw during a raging trend that Steve Jobs was selling his shares? Probably not. Probably not.
I mean, to be fair, the founders often sell big stashes.
Well, you know what I mean.
Of those major companies.
Didn't you guys
But
hear what
I agree,
Barry
it doesn't help.
Vincent said? He told me that Satoshi's running ads to sell Bitcoin.
What?
Yeah, that
Some
was
clown.
yeah. It's some like e-commerce guy, but yeah, and even meme coins are consistently making new year-to-date lows. SPX 6900, I think, given that it was the leader from like September all the way until mid-October when it went to a bill market cap, a lot of tokens ran hard during that time. And when it started showing some weakness going into December, early December, when it failed to actually make a significant all-time high, memes kind of just cooled off after that point, and it is what it is. You have to acknowledge the trend. Never take anything personal when it comes to price action.
I think, Bobby, what do you think of this? Because my take is that in the past cycles, whether it was 2017 or even in 2021, people believed in the tech and were bidding it, right? Whether it worked or not, that's another discussion. But the thing is, people believed in it, even like outside of normies. People are sort of like bidding on the tech. But I feel in the recent times, people said like, fuck it, it's just a chart. And I'm just going to bid the funniest ticker, with the funniest name. And what I think needs to happen from here is that the trust needs to be regained, and the projects needs to start delivering a real revenue coming in again in the future for people to bid again.
Man, so are you talking like fundamentals, right? I'm assuming that's where you're getting at.
I'm getting to the point that like you cannot run the market up again on just promises anymore and on just like meme coins anymore, because you ran out of liquidity basically. So unless you're going to do some insane amounts of QE again, I don't think you can run this market back up just like that. So I think what really needs to happen is that you need to start to have a true you need to have projects that either deliver a real revenue and you can start valuing them onto something, or you need just simply people using them, which again goes back to the revenue, but simply you need the trust to be regained, not just from retail, but even from like bigger funds who really moves this market.
Yeah, I want to touch on that last part that you just mentioned, Jack, is I think we've talked about this before, but one of the primary differences between the current cycle and the one in 2021, and sure, some of that was due to how, lax the monetary regime was in 2021, but there, as much as we rag on VCs, especially during the whole meme coin super cycle, what this market needs, at the very least altcoins need, is more liquidity, and VCs help provide that. Even if that capital isn't necessarily allocated efficiently, this bull market's had less than, I think it's less than half of the VC investment as a whole from private equity, from VCs, that it did in 2021. That makes a huge difference in that hot ball of money and the opportunity to make money on altcoins.
Yeah. Commented tech is too smart to be understood, but maybe what if it's too complicated that it's not as good? Like at the end of the day, the good ideas need to be simple, right? For people to understand too.
Yeah. When there just needs to be opportunity to make money. You look at some of I think the most successful narratives this cycle, like people will die for your coin or for your project. Fundamentals don't matter. If they're getting rich off of your project, you're going to create a cult, and that's going to create a positive feedback loop for price. Look at something like Hyperliquid, where obviously the exchange is fantastic to use, but when you make your holder base, all of your users, significantly wealthier, the fundamentals persist, right? And we saw that in February and March, where the entire market was just going down only, but Hyperliquid had, obviously it's come down now because it is just like every other asset in the market, but that strength persisted largely because of the cult-like following that they built.
Again, it's what I kind of discussed too, right? It's that revenue share in some ways. Like it doesn't have to be in just the coin pumping. It can be just like giving a part of the fees back to the token holders, just like that, just like sort of what Hype has done, but also a few other projects in the past, like Uni. And if you really think about it, that's really what drove lots of people to Uniswap back in the day.
Well, for revenue, you need for projects in crypto, you need easier monetary conditions. Like crypto is beta of beta.
Of course.
And as far as like revenue and all that stuff, if we're talking fundamentals, I agree. I think you need fundamentals to lead off of a low. I remember saying that like right before that early August crash, like everyone's trading the same 5 meme coins on Sol. Everybody was trading Billy, the Nero fiasco. Everyone was trading Giga, Mumu, Retardio. They were all trading the same tickers. And then off of that low, we were discussing like, we need some fundamentals to take hold here, right? I was looking at stuff on Sol. Will was looking at that was one of them. Yeah, I was looking at something like that. I was also looking at Drift and something else. I can't remember the ticker. But Will was mentioning Sui, right, for the L1 of choice. There's always an L1 that leads off of like the next expansion move higher within the market. In Q3 of 23, it was things like Injective, Casva, and Tia, right, and Solana. Last year, you really only had, once again, Solana and also Sui. And so usually after you have a ton of froth, meme coins come into play. Every single large top that the market has had since the FTX low, it's always been marked by excessive froth, right? In Q2 of 23, the top was marked by Pepe going to 1.5 bill from zero. In Q1 of last year, the market was topped when Pepe went to like 6 bill. And then in Q4 of last year, Pepe went to like 12 bill. That was the top. And usually a month after that top, right, you usually have on-chain euphoria. So if you guys remember Rollbit and all that stuff, that was going crazy after BTC had topped at like 31K. And then last year, we had some on-chain euphoria on base after BTC topped in March. And then, of course, late last year after BTC topped, we had AI going crazy throughout December and early parts of January. So this alt season that people have been talking about over and over and over again, it is quote unquote alt season, but it's a rotational alt season on chain, which is very so more PvP than it was last cycle, right? It's a bit more spread out, whereas the alt bid last cycle was more concentrated. Everybody knew what names to bid, right? Whereas this cycle, there's on-chain here, there's on-chain there. Liquidity is more dispersed, and there's no lender of last resort. There is no one to borrow from, right? It's just a hot ball of money.
I think a big reason for that, Wabi, I mean, you mentioned dispersion. I think the biggest driver for altcoin price action so far this cycle can, like, look at participant behavior. It kind of starts with Bitcoin and ETH. And we've talked before about the wealth effect that these majors create when they go higher. But typically what has happened in these previous cycles is that participants believe that they can achieve outsized returns from Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana. I mean, in this case, I mean, usually though, it's just Bitcoin and ETH. But this cycle, I think people immediately assumed, well, I want to achieve the highest ROI possible. I don't think that I can achieve that with Bitcoin and ETH. There was a lack of belief that these assets could do those things. And so people, instead of what usually happens is Bitcoin and ETH go up thousands of %, and then the rotation occurs into altcoins. And that's typically where that ROI on alts comes from. But this time, people just kind of skipped that step. They allocated right to the highest beta to altcoins, thinking that that rotation would eventually occur. And I think that it's the causality that's necessary for alt season, which is that you do have to kind of enrich the broader market through majors.
That's what I've been saying like already a year or even before ago, when I was saying like it's all fun and games as we try to catch the highest beta, but who is gonna bid the alpha, right? and it ended up exactly there.
Jack, as you remember in previous markets, like people were excited to buy Bitcoin. Now the only rhetoric that you see, especially on CT, it's a lot of hindsight stuff. It's a lot of like, oh, my timeline was talking about this and this, and then this happened with, and then they post like a Pepe meme. It's ridiculous. And like, again, no one really wants to buy BTC. Like, people don't want to buy BTC. Only institutional flows want to buy BTC, and of course, people that only buy BTC, right? But like,
BTC is for boomers, for retirement portfolios nowadays.
Yeah, it still performed greatly off the lows, 15K to 110K in 2 years. You're talking about almost a 10x.
It was 6x.
Oh,
7x.
Over 500%, or about
600%.
7x.
Yeah, 7x. And MSTR outperformed a lot of alts, man. And if you bought levered MSTR, that was basically like buying SOL at $8, but on the equity markets, it was basically like buying SOL. Honestly, MSTR was Solana, and that's a blow off top if I've ever seen one. And if you want to see how BTC is doing, and you're a TradFi guy, you just look at MSTR, and MSTR is in a full-blown bear market. The NASDAQ, like by definition, is close to being in a bear market from a drawdown perspective. Usually when an indice is down 15 to 20%, that's bear market territory. You just want to look out for some strength, right? Like with Solana, that is extremely alarming if you break out to the downside from those wicks. But I think like this drawdown that's happening on SOL is probably not going to draw down as hard as people think, and it's probably going to be something where like ETH drew down from 5,000 to 800, and then has a huge bounce off of those lows. But that's like the most that it squeezes out, because Solana right now is experiencing a fundamental issue where like a lot of the flows that came into SOL were due to Pump Fund, and Pump Fund is on a path to zero. Honestly, they're not really producing as much fees as they used to. I think there was a statistic last week where they only made like $70,000 $70,000 on in SOL tokens, and if you look at the amount of money they were producing a couple of months ago, they were making millions of dollars every day.
Well, it makes sense. Like, why would people keep coming back to the casino where you just keep losing the money, right? Like you at least need to like keep the imagination of people winning there, right? Yep. But everyone knows that Pump.fun is just like a few ruggers, getting the money out, and no participant makes money there. So people would be stupid, like truly stupid, if they kept coming back. So it makes sense that it's dying out totally. And again, that leads me back to the thing where you need to start have a permabit into stuff that people believe in, and again, it can come from, likely it's going to come from funds. But even if you look at the stock market, right, US stock market, most of it is owned by households.
Yeah, I think like if you red pill somebody on ETH and you tell them that the founder is consistently selling, they don't really like that. Even if there's a yield component, there's also an inflationary component. It is proof of stake, and that inflation outweighs the yield. Like, why wouldn't I just park it into some dividend stock at that point?
Well, I also think with that yield component, Wabi, like that is, I think, inherently tied to the wealth effect we were just discussing with majors. Like, if nobody's buying the alpha, it becomes a lot less attractive to try and loop or try to get this on-chain yield. So it just has like that reflexive effect of then hurting ETH price and DeFi price as well. So I don't think it's a surprise that we'd see these yield Ponzi's. There have been a few big winners, right? Like a Pendle pulled like a 20 to 25x. Obviously, there's some other ones as well. But we talk about benchmarking returns in DeFi versus the returns of last cycle in DeFi, and they're very different.
Yeah. And then if you were to red pill someone on Solana, right, and just take away the pump fund aspect, you do have consumer apps that are a dictation from Solana, right? Moonshot went from a 3 to 4 million valuation to almost $1 billion. They had a huge acquisition. I think that's something that is a good metric. Consumer apps, people that actually use this thing without actually knowing that they're using Solana, right? Whether as you use like a Uniswap or something like that, there is still some friction. You have to go through all these loopholes. And I do think, dude, ETH is here to stay. I understand that, but it's not going to 10x. Like if it 10x, you're saying that it's worth exactly the amount of Amazon, and it's just not 2017 where a market cap is like 100 mil. It's just not like that anymore. And when you have an asset that goes from what ETH launched at like 50 mil market cap, I think 50 mil, 30 mil, 20 mil, whatever it was, and then it shoots up to almost $1 trillion in 6 years. That's insane. That is an insane gain. Of course, you're going to go through like multiple years of fighting through to the next epoch, which is $1 trillion plus, right? Actually breaking through $1 trillion. And I don't really have much more to say on ETH, to be honest. But I think the first thing, like I know someone was asking, like, what are some things that you would want to see, right, for things to flip around? Well, number one, like equities need to stop nuking. Like, we're pressing upon 5,500 to the T, right, which is new year-to-date lows. You need first and foremost, you need equities to flip their yearly open. That's the first step, right? And for crypto, you need these assets to flip the monthly open, and then you need them to flip the February highs, and then you need them to flip the yearly open. And on the way there, of course, there are going to be some trades, right? It's going to be a trader's market. But once you flip the yearly open, hey, off to the races. Off to the races, man. We're all bulls at heart. People make more money.
Not all of us. There are some bears by heart.
Yeah, I mean,
we are.
I think,
but there are lots of bears by heart.
I think Trump, honestly, he's finishing the job that Jerome Powell wanted to finish in 2023. But you know how Dems are when it comes to the stock market. So I just think Trump is going to jawbone his way to 5,100, and then from there, fireworks.
Listen, poker is fun and fair for anyone, but this is not fun. The key difference between poker and this. Poker
Jeez, is that a token?
Fun.
It's Melania.
It's Melania.
Oh
my God.
Wow. I thought it said like Milady or something.
It's probably dissimilar,
Yeah.
But
Jack is. I think these tokens, right, like Melania and Trump, I think they were just gifts to Trump's donors, and it was kind of like a handout to them. Same thing with all these tweets. Like we saw Trump's body language. He's like, "Oh, apparently for Bitcoin, you just hold, you never sell." Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. Who the hell knows? So you had that instance, and then when he signed the executive order, he kept on asking David Sachs, like, "Oh, I promised this, right? And you said this was a good thing." So it's just typical politician stuff. But I'll say this: off of a bottom, there is no better president to have than Donald Trump. I will say that. And wherever we bottom, I genuinely think within 2 quarters, indices would be at all-time highs. Wherever we bottom, right? I genuinely think we will be at all-time highs within a couple of months. But yeah, this Tucker, I'm not sure if you can pull out like the 1 second chart on the S&P.
I can, brother.
It is obscene. And by the way, I know someone's asking about XRP. XRP is just, I think it's one of those altcoins where people like to say, "Oh, XRP still looks good, so how can you say altcoins look bad?" The rest of the market is in a structural downtrend, and at some point, even the strongest major falls into that. You guys saw Tommy earlier, and I think what Tommy said holds a lot of merit, right? Where in the beginning of this downtrend, Hyperliquid was something that looked really, really good, and it eventually caught up to the rest of the market. And I think that's probably what XRP is doing right now. And I think what you saw, that bid that you saw in XRP, was honestly just like Trump campaign money, donors, and also boomers buying XRP, and it failed to actually make an all-time high. And yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on XRP. And man, the SPX is just,
Oh, dude, this
something
chart
else.
actually is kind of nice.
Oh no, not XRP. But XRP dominance overlaid with the long end. Overlaid
with the long end.
I would say I wouldn't fight the trend until the trend is lost.
On this?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
ETH dominance has been going down. ETH dominance has been going down. BNB dominance has been going down. So like focusing on like XRP that is telling. That is telling, man.
What?
The ETH dominance.
Well, that's just ETH BTC. Like we know what that looks like.
Yeah.
But I think by the end of the year, man, I think all this is going to be a flash in the pan, right? Like historically speaking, if you buy a 10% drawdown within the S&P, this is after 2008, as I don't really think it's like respectful to the current regime that we've been in post 2008, where if you buy a 12 to 15% drawdown on the S&P within a year, you look like a genius. Like you look like a genius within a year, right? Like if you bought SPX, like levered SPX, when SPX drew down like 12% from August of 23 all the way until late October, S&P was at 4,100, and then a year later S&P was like 1,500 points higher, right? So I mean, I wouldn't really rule out, right? Like if S&P goes to like 5,400 or something like that,
But
within a year you'll be in the mid 6,000s. Right?
what I find crazy is SPX is currently going down, but Wix is still really not baiting. And I've overlaid NVIDIA and Wix, inverted Wix, right? And it's kind of like Wix is basically following NVIDIA right now, because again, you have SPX right now that is, selling off. So you basically should have Wix at new highs, basically, but you don't. And so it's really rather, if you look at this, right, then look at the tops, look at the bounces. It's kind of crazy. It's literally the same. The bottom is literally like NVIDIA bounces and you have a top on wicks, but at the same time you have a SPX that just hitting new lows as we speak.
Somebody wants out of the market.
I remember that quote, Tommy. Get me out of the market at any price.
Mhm. I feel like that's the issue with a lot of these on-chain alts right now. People want out at like 80% drawdown instead of 85%. People would rather get out at break even instead of like having a range breakout. I feel like that's where we're at with like alts and stuff. People want this quote unquote cycle to be over. When you have people that are so angsty to get out, I think if you pull up that Wall Street cheat sheet, you're somewhere in the middle of like my investments are with good companies, and then like the next level below that.
I agree with one comment here. Or like retail doesn't care for decentralization, and I can sign that. I mean, this is what the space started about. It really started about like the tech, what BTC stood for, and it made sense because like that's truly what would benefit, everyone around. But the thing is that people do not understand that how decentralization like help, because it's technically a free market, and so they do not really care about it. And it will be interesting, and I think Solana kind of grasped that too, because Solana isn't decentralized. It's a centralized shit that you can turn off and on at any time, but it's fast and usable, and that's what people like at the end of the day. So I agree, they do not care. Most people don't care about decentralization. So it'll be interesting to see what direction the projects take in the future. I do care about it though, but I feel I agree with Geman that people in general don't.
And what's wild is like a 10% to 15% correction on S&P is actually massive because of all the money that's been poured in to the equity markets over the last few years. All that collateral. I wonder who's like at risk of getting margin called below certain levels, like who's going to be carried out. I don't think multi-year recessions ever happen again, to be honest. I think bear markets are getting shortened and shortened and shortened and shortened. Because even when equity markets like drew down in 2018, it wasn't that long either. Even in 2022, it wasn't that long either. It lasted what, 9 months, 10 months for S&P?
When this?
Yeah, that happened within 9 months from January all the way to October.
Yeah.
That's really fast. Even in 2018, that drawdown lasted like 5 months. Actually, no, S&P topped in like this. I forgot when it topped. Yeah, I think we
January.
rallied. Yeah, but we rallied throughout the summer. We had like a double toppy. We had a McDouble toppy.
Make double toppy. Is that what you just said?
Double toppy, I liked it.
Double toppy. Yeah. I remember in the 2022 bear market, I thought the NASDAQ would bottom like right below 10,000. And I used to call it the McNASDAQ. Like right when the S&P goes below 10,000, just a hair, that would be like the Pico low. But I remember when the McNasty actually hit, like, I think we bottomed at like 10.2, 10.3. And the content online versus like the real world was night and day. In the real world, people were like out and shopping and all that stuff, but crypto bros turned into macro gurus. Were all saying like imminent recession coming. There is no passive bid when Europe is like gonna go to zero, and and like rates are as high as they're gonna go when Powell is saying that he's going to cause a lot of pain. Who's going to bid? And I just found that with I think there was like a forex crisis with the English pound. Like you had the Bank of England write a note to Jerome Powell begging him to stop raising rates. You had Kathy Wood write a letter to the Fed asking them to stop raising rates. And at that point, it's like, all right, if you have all this happening, what's your biggest R&R, and what's happened over the last year, right? You had Meta retracing 90+%, and you simply had two major crashes happen within 2 years, and like you don't really have back-to-back crashes in equity markets like that. You just don't. And I mean, FTX and Alameda, they had equity in some pretty substantial, important companies that were starting up at the time, like Anthropic, which absolutely gigaprinted for Alameda, by the way.
That's how they made FTX users whole, was Anthropic.
Yeah, and I think this bottom is a lot closer to being in than people think, time-wise, I think, for equities, time-wise. I just don't think it's gonna last like for 9 months. I just don't, man. And you're now starting to see the press ask Trump about the White House. Like, yes, the regime still will continue. He'll still talk down the market, but at some point, like, that narrative is just gonna end. It's kind of like in 2022. Anytime that would happen to the Biden administration, at some point they would say, all right, we are now monitoring what's going on in the stock market. We would have these huge bounces. It happened in June of 22 and October of 22. And right now they're just not paying attention to the stock market. And the Biden administration would say that too during these downturns. Like, we're not paying attention to the stock market. And once the administration starts saying we're actively paying attention to the stock market, like we're monitoring the situation, all right, it's cool. Time for some bullish price action, and it's gonna be great. It's gonna be amazing. So,
don't we also have a Bank of Japan rates decision tomorrow or tonight even?
Oh man,
I think so.
Sukuna. Is it Sukuna
I think
time?
it's today. Hey, let me check.
Is Sukuna about to come out?
I might have
no, it's next week. It's next week.
In case.
It's on Wednesday. So wait, on Wednesday we have Bank of Japan policy decision, and at the same day we have FOMC decision.
Yeah.
Check week, big week.
Jeez, man.
Do you guys know what's funny? Gold was trading last year at 2,000 and now is at 3K. And ETH was trading at 3K last year and now it's at 2K.
2K, we're at 1,800, Jackus.
Well, sub 2K, yeah.
Ultrasound money, man.
Now we are definitely at the extreme of the opposite side right now. I'll tell you that.
But dude, I do think if you see like ETH sub 1,500, that's like long term.
Yes,
long term stuff. I don't care what like anyone says. Like right now, I think like that last bastion of hope for like ETH is being done, right? Like you're starting to hear crickets. It's sort of like going into that anger into depression phase where there's always another drop going into that depression phase. And even if like you look at some of these other fundamental charts, they look floored. The only things that don't look floored right now are memes. Honestly, there's a lot of memes that like have a ways to go down. So yeah, there's that, and it's sort of crazy, man, how like BTC is still only down 30%. Whether the rest of the space is down astronomically, and it just goes to show like how different the flows are this cycle, right? Like if this was a traditional cycle, this drawdown that you're seeing on Bitcoin would have resulted into like an alt season, right? BTC pulling back like 10 to 15%, massive alt season. And I remember when we had a quote unquote crash to 89K a couple of weeks ago or something. I think it was like that early February nuke. And the context was it's the lowest RSI since COVID. It's the biggest crash since FTX. But yet a month later, prices are egregiously lower. So, like, while things like RSI are cool, right? And like they're nice to use here and there, I think just using one set of data, it's flawed.
Yeah,
It's really
you
flawed.
can never use one set of data. Or like you can, but it usually doesn't work out really well. So, but regarding to that RSI, I think this is the first time we've hit really oversold at end of February when BTC was at, well, basically where it is now, because back then that was probably on the H4. So definitely important to differentiate H4 and daily. We basically, for the first time where we are red, we've hit the levels we saw in August.
Yeah, and you can look at like even here, we had a little bit lower and then we went back up, but
well, obviously it depends on the context, right? So there was a reasoning for me back then to also think that we drop lower first before going higher again. But just like Wabi says, you do want to look at the only thing and just like, oh, RSI oversold, I buy. So many times it can be like that and we're great, but you also want to, check other stuff too and not just solely that. But nonetheless, it's truly a good tool, I would say.
Yeah, I think the key for me here is what is equity volatility going to do, man? If they can't smash it here, then the odds of us having an actual bull event go up pretty substantially.
Yeah, and think of the fact, Tom. Sorry to cut you off. I'll be very quick, but again, this isn't a crypto drop. This is equity drop. Once that's like, look at how BTC holding so well during this, right? Like you have SPX hitting new lows every single day, pretty much. BTC is holding pretty strong. I think once that's done, you will see the risk to turn around. Sorry, back to you.
No, you're right, but I just I definitely expected equities to kind of stop just drilling, and they haven't. So it definitely makes it a bit harder to allocate when when equity volatility is just a fucking tank. But that to me is what to watch, right? And it's like you said, Jackus, it's going to be very heavily correlated to Nvidia at the end of the day. That's kind of been like the bastion of strength for the Nasdaq since the bear market lows.
You need Nvidia to bottom.
We haven't really talked that much about China's comments with Nvidia, or not Nvidia, but Taiwan, really over the last few days. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but they have been saying some not so nice things.
What is not so nice things?
Basically, if you don't surrender, you're cooked. Terms.
That's not very nice.
No. Yeah, I mean it was much meaner than that, but no, I think the bottom is going to be entirely determined by what Nvidia is doing, just in the same way that it's going to be determined by whatever equity volatility is doing. They're going to be very heavily correlated, because I imagine there's a lot of people who got long Nvidia and then leveraged those gains to be long other stocks. So if Nvidia starts to sell in the same way that when Bitcoin starts to sell, you're going to see a lot of air come out of equity markets, at least from like a velocity standpoint. We've already seen quite a lot of air come out of things like QQQ come out of the S&P, but if Nvidia starts to really sell, you're definitely going to see it throughout the rest of the market. Beyond just an index level, you're going to see individuals start to sell off a lot harder too.
Yeah, need Nvidia to bounce here for sure. For sure.
Bounce now, or I cut it off.
I think it's actually bullish if we close like Q1 in the red. That gives us room to bounce in Q2, man. But yeah, Nvidia does not look great. Sub 100 on the table.
For Nvidia,
Give it to me.
I think so. It could be.
Maybe $80. Maybe Nvidia and Sol are the same chart, man. And that wick that we saw on Nvidia at sub 100 is Sol at 109. Nvidia led the equity bull market. Sol led the crypto bull market.
Jeez, man.
And to be honest, Tommy, if you remember on the equity markets, it wasn't until a 20% drawdown on the S&P where we actually started to have like a multi month rally. And I think like the S&P doesn't need to draw down a full 20% because that would actually notionally be a significant more amount of money than what a 20% drawdown on S&P was 3 years ago. But I think if you get like what a 15% drawdown or something like that, which would take the S&P to like just below 5,300, between 5,100 and 5,300. And equities, my gosh, I hope they have some sort of bounce. I really do. I think just from like the amount of money that would be wiped in the stock market would be a good chunk more than that drawdown that we saw in 2022. And yeah, just I'm hopeful on that end because I want to play a bounce, to be frank.
I would like to as well, man. But I guess we'll see here over the next week or so. Because if selling continues to accelerate, then yeah, we could definitely get a much larger bull event. Because as a whole, like selling, we're down a good bit in equity markets, but I would say it's still been fairly orderly in nature. So I'm watching equity volatility. I think that's the key piece here.
Haggard, what are your thoughts on the market, man?
I think we're close to a bottom, closer than a lot of people think. I think the S&P is going to get a pretty substantial bounce here soon, honestly. Like back up to 57s, even if it's a lower high, I still think you get like this, and then you can decide right there. But I don't think we just do this, I think we'll put in a bounce here soon, probably off of FOMC if I had to guess, but we'll see. I think Powell will be somewhat accommodative after
10+% drawdown.
Yeah, I think you'll have to be. Yeah. So
man,
yeah.
Like even after we topped in January of 22, it took some time for the S&P to draw down 10%. Like S&P topped out 2 weeks ago. Like it's insane the acceleration of selling that's been happening.
I think it needs to be and I think this quick selling is really good for the restoration of the bull market because again, quick counter trend sell-offs usually get bought up when the panic hits, liquidation hits, and so forth. So the deeper this goes, the better. Because I do not think that at that point you will be, expecting a drawn-out bear market for equities. And this is soon to be the biggest drop since the bear market of 2022. So I think, I think good times quickly.
Man,
yeah, I don't think it'll be drawn out at all. I think I think it'll be sharper drawdowns on the S&P, shorter.
Tucker, you know I've been saying for like the past months,
Mm.
better pray this is quick sell-off and no bounces in between. And I think we are getting that quick sell-off now.
Yeah, we are.
Trump is doing everything in his power to rug this market, honestly. And I'm not
so
gonna
easy for him.
Jack, this is the same kind of price action that we saw in 2020. I think S&P had that top in February, like early February-ish. Tucker, if you can like scroll back, like a few weeks before the COVID nuke, we were in a raging bull market. Everything looked incredible. And even with Bitcoin, like Bitcoin looked incredible. We probably would have broken 20K by Q2 if the trend continued and COVID didn't happen. But I'm talking S&P. I'm talking S&P S&P in like Q1
Of what year?
2020. See, like the S&P was at
That
all-time
pre-COVID
highs.
price.
Yeah, we were at all-time highs, man. Well, when did we peak exactly? Like February-ish, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and then look at where we topped last month, February 19th. Same thing, bro. The same exact date. It's kind of frightening. Where we peaked out last month, we peaked out on February 19th of 2025. Look at that price action. Look at that price action compared to right now. It's almost identical, bro. And we have a blood moon like tomorrow. Or is it today?
I think it's
Wasn't it
tonight or
yesterday?
tomorrow.
Tommy.
I think it's tonight. The total lunar eclipse blood moon. And I think I do think there's something with the BOJ tonight. It would be kind of fitting if the blood moon is actually just the Japanese flag. I saw somebody make that comment on X. I'm gonna steal it. Sorry if you're in the comments. I don't know. I don't remember who it was. I can't give you credit, but
Listen, it's very easy for Trump. Like all he could be doing is just lowering prices for some of his mates who pushed him to load cheap on stocks. Right after they are loaded, he will just say, "Oh, I changed my mind with tariffs. We are back to normal. Oh, we are so back. Pump it back up. Boys got loaded. That's it."
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, if the Qs go sub 400, man, bro, ETH would go to like $800 to be honest.
If the Qs go sub 400.
Yeah, that the ETH would have a massive macro double bottom at 800.
Yeah, that's fair. 400, yeah.
Man.
I think that's a probably a pretty good spot to look to wrap things up, guys. I don't know about you, but yeah, I think the next few days market are going to be very, very important, and you know, maybe the volatility has not quite ceased here for the next few weeks, but we certainly have some important astrology that could impact the market. I guess it just depends on if you believe in that sort of thing or not. But yeah, guys, if you enjoyed what you heard on today's stream, we do have a few different ways for you to get more thoughts from the analysts. To join the family, come check out our premium Discord, guys. We give 4 to 5 hours of calls.
Thomas, sorry to cut you off. We had a super chat from Chris. Maybe we could cover that too before we wrap it up.
Yes.
Your take.
Yes, let's do that.
I got you. Yeah, I mean, this whole area that it wicked into is kind of nice. What do you say from October 10th? October 10th. Did we get all the way? Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'd still like to see kind of a break of trend before anything confirmed. But so probably if we're just going off of price action, like lose that low and it looks better for downside. But that was definitely a nice area to take out. Yeah, I'd say below 5.3 it looks more bearish. You probably have MAs that are curled up though, if I had to guess.
And you guys know tomorrow, or I think it's actually today. Today is the 5-year anniversary of the COVID crash.
Interesting.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and if you take a look at last year and the year before, there's always some sort of like downturn. Yeah.
For me, it's 5.25% to take out, and otherwise, I still think we can and possibly will make another high here on USDT dominance. But generally, we should be in a topping area, more or less. I think we are still to possibly hit 6%, but and that should be above 6%. That should be the top to me. For if not, then you are really looking for like 7.8% or so. So I think either like 6 or you need to see sub 525 from my side. And thank you, Chris, for the donation.
Yeah, that looks about right. Can't have more than 6. Yeah, no, definitely not. Definitely not.
It looks like it wants to hit 6. That looks like a raging bull market.
Blow off top, Bobby. Blow off top.
No, it was a
blow off top vibes right now, low key.
Say that again, Tommy.
It's giving vibes that it might be about to blow off top.
About to, yes. About to, yes.
All right, Tommy, you do the outro. I'm just gonna share this and poke around, but run the outro, brother.
All right, boys. Like I was saying, we do have some opportunities for you to potentially join the family. If you are interested in hearing more from any of the analysts that you listen to on today's panel, come check out our premium Discord, guys. We give 4 to 5 hours of calls every single day where we give our thoughts on the market, our thoughts on positioning, everything in between. We've also got some really amazing community members in there who have been giving out a lot of alpha, both in the trenches and as far as trades go. So the collective brain trust that is the Discord, of course, has been providing a lot of opportunity to make money, even during times where things like altcoins and beta have been in downtrends. But of course, we also have your go-to tool for this cycle, guys, which is the BB terminal. If you are looking for your go-to tool this cycle, if you are an active trader in the market, if you are a long-term investor, and soon, if you are an on-chainer, you love the trenches, we will have your go-to tool as well. So make sure to check out these two things. We have packaged them together at discounted prices. Of course, if you are looking to hone your educational base or even reach trading level mastery, we also have the BB Academy if you're looking to get some more rigid course learning from any member of the team. We have the option for you to be able to do that as well. So come check out the BB Academy. And lastly, maybe this market volatility has been too much for you to be able to manage yourself. We have the opportunity for the team to manage capital for you as well. We have an SEC registered hedge fund that prioritizes digital assets in a way that looks to capture their asymmetric history for upside returns while also balancing the downside risk posed in any financial market. So if anything that I just said resonated with you here over the last 60 to 90 seconds, come check out the description below. We have everything linked there. But that's it from us, guys. We hope that you enjoyed Market Check today. We will be back for another episode tomorrow. We are live whenever the New York Stock Exchange is open with a typical start time around 11 to 11:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, make sure if you enjoyed Wabi's conversation on today's show, check out his spaces as well through our Because Bitcoin account on X. He is live Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. So make sure to stay following both Because Bitcoin as well as Wabi so you can be notified not just when we schedule those spaces, but of course also when we go live. But thanks as always, guys, for tuning in. It's quite a volatile market right now, quite an intriguing setup. I've seen some people say interesting. It's an interesting spot, right? That's the verbiage that they use. I'm sure it will continue to be an interesting spot as we go forward here over the next few days. But as always, guys, thanks for tuning in. And of course,
Tommy,
yeah.
Look, I have a message for all market participants. Are you ready? Can I give my important exclusive emergency message?
You may.
Look, don't try and get by or you'll get dealt with and trapped.
Oh, dear God. No. Oh, no.
Come on. You get it?
All right, guys. That's it for today. Y'all have a great rest of your day. And as always, thanks for tuning in.